Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the mid-morning talk with Najma Kota on Salam Media every Monday between 11 and 1. And our profile interview today is with our very special silent hero segment, and that's none other than Sister Zohra Sooliman. Assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Najma, and all the listeners of Salam Media.
Zohra, I wonder if you remember we did an interview in 2002 when you
Absolutely, I remember it was with the Lerato.
And on Channel Islam International. And at that time, you had just, I think, established the care line. You've come a long way. Alhamdulillah, you've come a long way.
Alhamdulillah. Good to see you again. Good to connect after so many years.
Absolutely. So, Zohra Sooliman is the co-founder of Gift of the Givers Foundation and the director of the Care Line Counseling now in its 26th year of service. They service individuals, couples, families, and the community. Zohra is a counseling psychologist, and her focus area is general counseling, career counseling, community, positive and spiritual psychology. She works collaboratively with organizations that advocate and advance issues concerning women and children. Zohra lives with her family in Pietermaritzburg and is based at the head office of the Gift of the Givers Foundation. Now, you know, Gift of the Givers is synonymous with humanitarian work. But before we start, we talk about that, I'd really like our listeners, our viewers, to get to know Zohra. Who is Zohra? Let's be in conversation with Zohra. Where did you grow up? What inspired you? What was your, how did you get through into university? And of course, you can even tell us about the introduction of the Gift of the Givers from your side. So I've given you a lot. Sorry, Zohra.
So you might have to remind me. You might have to remind me if I've missed out anything. But I'll start off with, I think your first question was, where was I born and where did I start off as when I was young? So I was born in Cape Town, and we lived in Strand. It's one of the cities of Cape Town. And I lived there until the age of 7, when my parents decided to immigrate to KZN. And then we moved to Pietermaritzburg, also a city in KZN. And I've done all of my schooling and education in Pietermaritzburg. But it has been a very long journey because when I finished off my schooling, I was in the family business for a year, and during that very year, I got proposed, and we were not thinking that the wedding would happen so quickly, but circumstances then, like my mother-in-law was ill, and so she had asked my mother if we could have this wedding within, I think it was 9 months that the engagement lasted. And so my studies, where the plan was that I would go to university, finish off my degree, and then get married, it didn't work out like that. But anyway, Allah always knows and has a better plan for all of us. In that journey of having gotten married early and not having started my studies initially, or rather I did start, but then my mother-in-law was diagnosed with cancer. So within 7 weeks of starting varsity, I had to deregister so that I could take care of her. And then within 6 months, she passed away. And so at that time, there weren't many medical advancements in terms of the treatment of cancer. It was still a very, very, it was in the early stages when the moment you heard cancer, you knew it's a death sentence. But nowadays, there's so many medical advancements that prolong life and even allow patients to go into remission. Nevertheless, that paused my journey of study. And thereafter, I started with UNISA because then, like with Imtiaz. That's my husband, Imtiaz Sooliman, just to inform the listeners.
Mhm.
So he was still a medical intern. And so life, obviously, you're not earning a lot of money and things like that. And your working times as an intern is very, very erratic and quite intense. So I opted for the option to study with UNISA. And I went, and in that time, I also, within 2 years of getting married, I had my first baby. Within 4 years, I had my second baby. And so, with the babies coming and having to focus on bringing them up, and I had to put my studies on pause. Well, UNISA worked for me, but at the same time, it wasn't as fast as studying at a full-time university, which was my initial plan. And
Mhm.
the plan was to become an educator.
Mhm.
And and then along the way, very quickly, once Imtiaz had started practice, which was when we had our first daughter, our first child, that was in 1986. And then he ran his practice for 9 years. But somewhere along the practice, I would say 5 years down the line, we were involved with a lot of community work. And that's our background, both from Imtiaz's family and from my
Mhm.
family. So
Mhm.
as individuals, we were already very involved in uh, in community work and lots of social engagement and things like that.
Mhm.
So we started a lot of projects unofficially, which was not then under the name of the Gift of the Givers. And so that took up a lot of time from both Imtiaz's practice and my study schedule, and being a full-time mom and
Sure.
having a job and trying to juggle many things. So
Mhm.
eventually, and then when Imtiaz started, when we started projects like the Bosnian project, which is our flagship project, which is when Gift of the Givers was officiated and formalized, uh, Imtiaz was away most of the time, leaving
Mhm.
me as what I call a single mother, and having to, make sure that lots of aspects of living as a family, of me as a mother to my children, uh, in my workplace, in my studies, and being a wife as well. And then the fact that Imtiaz was away, and at this stage, Gift of the Givers was running very informally. So we had no office or no staff, and I would like be doing the admin stuff from here, whilst he would be overseas on the ground with the project. So my
Mhm.
studies took a long hold, at least 9 or 10 years, where I didn't study. In that
Mhm.
time, I had opened up an Islamic preschool, one of the first in Pietermaritzburg. I
Mhm.
ran that for 6 years. And then at the same time, the Gift of the Givers was working informally. We were doing
Mhm.
relief projects, but not in the name of the Gift of the Givers, as we were formalized only in 1992 of August. But
Mhm.
previous to that, from 1989 to 1992, we were working on individual projects like the Iraq Relief Fund, the Bangladesh Relief Fund, the Mozambique Relief Fund, and many other projects. And
Mhm.
so eventually I had to leave, close up my preschool, and I had to become the administrator, because at that point we didn't have a formal structure where we could run the givers from. We
Right.
basically ran it from my home. And
Mhm.
so we couldn't employ somebody to be in my home space. So
Mhm.
the logical thing was for me to now take that position, and that is how the Gift of the Giver started in my home. And as I say, studies went on pause for at least 10 years. And then 10 years later, so okay, no, you go on.
No, 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 no. Finish, finish. I
Okay.
wanted to, yeah, go ahead.
So then, as I said, we didn't, at that point, Imtiaz being a medical doctor in private practice, running 3 practices, myself being a preschool teacher and trying to study with UNISA towards an educator's degree, um, we never thought that relief work or disaster intervention would become our full-time occupation. It was just something we did because that was our backgrounds. Our families were very charitable, and we were, as children, we were always incorporated into those charitable events. So
Mm.
we really didn't think this is something like it's going to be our full-time job. We just thought, well, this is our contribution
Sure.
to society. But then
Right.
it got really big, especially after Bosnia. And you would know with that, the deployment of the field hospital that
Correct.
took 36 months before it was finally installed in an area called Mostar in Bosnia. And that's when I said to Imtiaz, look, I think this organization is growing out of its seams now, and it can't be accommodated in a two-bedroom house with four children.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was all over the place. The children's books, my things, the organization. All we had was one dining room table to work at, and two bedrooms and a lounge and a kitchen, and that was not enough space to run an office, which was now becoming a full-time thing. So eventually, in I think it was 1995, I said to Imtiaz, we need to go and look for a proper building in town, and we need to consider renting now. I think the organization has reached that point, and so we need to do that, and we also need to separate home life and work life because
Mm.
it was
Important.
basically merged, and
Right.
I don't think it was very healthy for the family because it
Mm.
was just a continuation of work and family life. Day and night was the same thing.
Right.
And so that's, yeah.
Mm. Sora, I wish we had more time, but we're going to make maximum use of the time that I have with you now. So, what struck me as most inspiring is that you were pursuing your studies, and from the time you were um, when you started your university life, there were life's interruptions, if you like, and you had to sacrifice until you could get to the point that you wanted to. What's truly admirable is that you did, and it's incredibly inspirational, and that's why we have this program, because it's not just about that silent hero, that belongs to this incredibly popular all over the world. Everyone knows Gift of the Givers is on everyone's tongue, mashallah. And the two of you have played the sincere role in bringing it to the point that it is. But knowing how you got there from your experience of it all is in itself also an inspiration. So, um, and now recently, you've also completed your master's degree. So you just don't stop. And that's your, and that's I think your passion. You just want to learn more and more and more, and you pursue it. And I can imagine with the organization having grown so much, you might have, of course, now you have all the help, but there's still that support you offer to Imtiaz, and the role you play in the organization itself. So how do you balance that now, so many years later?
I think it's been a juggling act right from the beginning. Trying to uh, be so with Imtiaz having traveled extensively and still traveling extensively, it puts a lot of responsibility on me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've got to cover a lot of aspects of, in the running of the household, in the running of of making decisions, because he's hardly ever around to consult with. And life is happening every day. I can't wait for Imtiaz to come from a 2-week journey or trip. And usually he doesn't communicate a lot when he's overseas because he's also very, like, he works from morning
Involved.
till night. And
Mm-hmm.
often they are in areas where there's barely any connection and stuff like that. So there are times like on the spot you got to make decisions, and so those are things that I've had to do on my own. I just want to go back a little bit, rewind. My
Certainly.
my main focus was that when Imtiaz was traveling so much, I felt my children needed stability in their life. They needed a stable anchor. And that was one of the reasons that I also put my studies on hold. Because if you are going to be your focus is spread out with your studies, your work, your children, your family life, your as a wife, as so many things. You can't give everything your best. Something is going to give. But for me, my children were the most important because they were in their early years, developing years. And if those years are not managed well, then you can run into all sorts of problems when the children get older. So for
Mhm.
me, I was, that was my priority, apart from still being a staff at the Gift of the Givers and being involved as a part-time student and all the things that I mentioned before. But
Mhm.
it's been a constant juggling act. But to tell you that what has brought me to come to realize my dream and to finish my master's,
Yes.
and again, I was planning to just be an educator. And I
Uh-huh.
thought, well, that's a perfect profession for a woman because you get holidays, so you can spend lots of time with your children. Your working day will be exactly like your children's time. So when you go to school, they go to school. When you come back, they back. And then you still spend the time with them in the afternoon. So I felt that that was the profession I wanted because I'm very old-fashioned in that way when it comes to family values and holding up tradition in families.
Mhm.
So, but the work is what actually charted my way, and it changed my direction to become a psychologist and working in the um,
Environment.
psychosocial
Mhm.
field and environment. And I think I'm open to anything I'm open to what comes my way, and I sort of surrender to that because I trust that Allah has a plan for me, and I'm willing to surrender to that plan and follow that journey and that direction. And that is how it happened that my studies then took a detour from education into psychology.
Mhm.
And then, of course, we also had challenges there because so when I went back to UNISA after 10 years, I pursued a social work degree, which I thought was fitting to the work of the organization. And
Right.
then social work is not offered at the university in Pietermaritzburg. So again, I had to do it via UNISA. And then I
Mhm.
felt, but you know what? Although I'm doing social work, my encounter was more with people on an individual basis, having all kinds of issues related to women, related to children, related to the vulnerable issues of the community. And I still
Mhm.
said, no, I think psychology would be the right fit. So when my oldest child finished her matric and started university, and I was doing all the taxing for all my children from preschool, primary school, high school, madrasa in between, sports activities in the afternoon, and now it was going to be my daughter at university. And then I just told myself, oh, so if I drop her at the university, I don't think it will hurt to stop there, attend a few lectures, and then be back in the car and carry on with what I have to do, go back to work or go back and pick up a child and take them to madrasa or whatever the case. It was just, I just included it as part of my day. And
Mhm.
so, like that, I then changed my degree to psychology. And the university was going through a change at that time. So unfortunately, my psychology degree was delayed by another 2 years. So I
Mhm.
finally finished my studies, I think, in 2007.
Mhm.
And I had a double degree. So I had three majors, not double degree, but a degree with three majors.
Mhm.
And eventually, well, that's what I thought, that's what I wanted, and I'll be satisfied. But no, having opened the care line, sorry, this
Mhm.
phone just fell. Having
It's
opened the
okay.
care line by 1997, I felt that um, I needed to constantly upgrade my own knowledge and skills. So then I
Right.
decided to go for the honors degree. But
Mhm.
I only went back to honors in 2014 and I did my honors. And every
Right.
time I studied, it was always part time. So
Mhm.
everything took longer. So if an honors degree was 1 year, my honors took me 2 years because I
Sure.
still divided my time with work,
I
family,
understand.
studies, and my social responsibility. And remember, I also have elderly parents. At that
Mhm.
time, my mom was fighting her battle with cancer. So I also had to play my part as one of 7 siblings. So it's been juggling of balls. And then when I finished my honors, then I said, no, I want more. I want to be the best in my field. And being the best in my field, having run the Careline or having started the Careline counseling service, I need to be the most qualified. And to be qualified, you needed to have a master's. So that's when I enrolled for my master's. And I did my master's in 2019. And then, you know, with the master's, you have to do your thesis. So that takes another year. And then you do your fellowship, and that takes another year. So the master's is not just a 1-year program. It's basically a 3-year program, 2 to 3-year program. And that is how I finally qualified. I graduated last year. And then my thesis, the topic that I chose for my thesis was also a very, an issue that was a common issue that was being practiced in society, but needed a lot of attention because of the kinds of impact it had on the women, the children, and the families. So the topic for my master's was something that I felt I could give back into the community. So everything has been, you know, the journey was, I would say, mapped out through Allah, by Allah.
Of course.
And then, you know, he put these issues in front of me and say, now you need to work in this area and you need to explore that area. And so that is how I've come to this point, if that will answer your question.
Absolutely. I just think that you're such an exemplary figure for women. And I know you're an advocate for women's rights as well. So that, you know, it stands out so strongly. But what I like most is that when you say you've prioritized in terms of your role as a mother and your role as a wife, then that, you know, removes that feministic notion that, you know, we have to be with the men, we have to be alongside the men. We have our role and our duty to fulfill as Muslim women, and you stand out as one of those that are that certainly can be used as an example. I'm going to quote you where you say, the road has been long, but I finally got here with the help of my children, my husband, friends, family, colleagues, and most of all, Allah. And of course, your husband must have been very proud of your achievements. You know, you make it sound so, you put it into a story and in a very short time, very well. But I can't imagine what it must have been like when Imtiaz had to be away doing his work and you alone trying to manage the household, the children, and of course, never giving up on your own passion. And I think that's the message I want to carry from our conversation today. That whatever it is, as an individual, you need to continue with what you want for yourself. So yes, you're a mom. Yes, you're a wife. Yes, you're a social worker. Yes, you're a family member. Yes, you're a daughter. Yes, you have all those roles. But take what you're doing, what you like, as the priority. And if you don't give up on that, then here's Zohra Sooliman telling us that she didn't. And it took her years to get to where she wanted to, and she's realized her dream. So we have to wrap up on that note. And once again, it's been such a pleasure. We'll speak to you soon again, inshallah, if we can make the time. But Jazakallah khair.
Ameen, and Jazakallah for that. But if you'd allow me, I just want to say, so I encounter lots of women and they say, but how do you do this? You know, we've given up on studies. We can't even read a simple article. Our brains are not working, anymore. We are so caught up with our family lives and everything else that we can't even see ourselves studying. And I always say, that's what you think. But when you put yourself in there, you'll realize that you have it. It will all come back to you. And it's so important to pursue your own dreams and aspirations because you are your own person. Being a mother, all these other roles that you described is not what completes you. There's different facets to all of us. And the first thing is us, ourselves, our own personal aspirations. And it's very important that women focus on that because often they sacrifice everything at the expense of themselves and their own aspirations.
Perfect note to end on. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That's it for this week's edition of Mid Morning Talk. We've had our setbacks, but of course, everything went well, alhamdulillah, and we will do our best to bring you the show next week, inshallah, with inspirational and, of course, knowledgeable guests. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.